Hello and welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jami Carlacio, coming to you from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As a positive intelligence or PQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop both emotional intelligence and mental fitness. That is, you'll come to regard problems as situations that help you learn and grow. PQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables you to develop and sustain a positive relationship with yourself and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button so more people can enjoy the benefits of PQ. And now, here's the show. And welcome everybody to episode 14. This one is called Faith Over Fear, and I am with Laurie Stern. She is my guest, and I'm just going to read a little bit about her, and then we'll get right into the discussion. So, Laurie, hold on, I'm going to just see if I can go live with Instagram. I still haven't figured out the Instagram thing, so it's not going to happen. So anyway, I'm happy to be with you here today, and Laurie is a Renaissance woman. All right. So, well, you really are. You've got like so many things. She works with individuals and groups, and she aids numerous clients to achieve their goals across a variety of areas: personal growth, spiritual development, relationship satisfaction, stress and anxiety management, and mindfulness, meditation, yoga, chakra balancing, and Reiki. So she dedicates herself to empowering her clients to developing their own spiritual connection and embracing their natural forms of holistic health and healing. Her approach involves crafting a personalized plan for each client and offers a tailored blend of intuitive healing modalities that nurture the interconnection of mind, body, and spirit. Laurie holds a 200-hour yoga teaching, training, certification, and Reiki 1 and 2, and a chakra healing master accreditation. And she also has worked with Jennifer Ray with medicine and movement yoga. She's a proud mother of 4 grown children and a partner in a supportive and loving marriage since 1988. And congratulations for that. In a world where there are so many divorces, it's such a pleasure to see someone who's been married that long. And she also celebrates her roles as a devoted dog mom, Spotify enthusiast, singer, dancer, lifelong learner, pickleball player, fierce friend, sibling, dot connector, and writer. She's driven by a vision of a world brimming with infinite vitality and a profound sense of urgency to make a positive impact by relying on her unique blend of experiences to offer all that she knows and all that she reaches authentically, enthusiastically, and professionally. And hi, it is so good to see you. And for those of you who may have seen this is take 2 because I screwed the sound up last time.
Yeah, well, Mercury,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
nice to see you again.
It's good to see you too. And for those of you who are watching, Laurie and I have about 98% things in common. I only have 1 child and I am not married at the moment. So, but other than that, we have a lot of things in common. We connected. Yeah. So what I want to know first, I was thinking about this over the past week since we did this a week ago, is I was thinking about alignment and the connection between faith, fear, and alignment. And I wondered if you could talk about that in the context of the work you do.
Faith, fear, and alignment in the context of the work that I do would be how we align our chakras to open our energy up to the idea of first recognizing what the fear may be, where it may be in our body. And through clearing out and figuring that out, it leaves room for faith, right? And faith is the word, right? It's you have to have faith to have faith. And it's like the idea that it's a trust fall. And for those of us who lack trust,
Mhm.
then a lot of those people I would imagine have trouble finding faith, because faith
Mhm.
is something we can't necessarily touch, feel, smell. We just have
Mhm.
to believe that it's there, like
Mhm.
people behind you on the ropes course, that they're going to catch you.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
definitely. You need
I'm a
some
camper.
faith for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
I was thinking that for me, um, when I am wavering in my faith, I think of all the numerous times that God has had my back. And every single time that I fell or made a mistake or did something that I shouldn't have done, there was a safety net there. There was a
yeah,
safety net there. So every single time that I think, wait, is this going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Just remember all the evidence has stacked up. Now, that isn't to say everyone can answer that the way I did, because there may be some people who say, no, God wasn't there for me, or no, this thing happened and I had faith and then it happened anyway.
yeah,
And so it's hard to answer that and
yeah.
honor other people's experience.
I don't disagree. What I've learned for sure is, even in the most difficult of times,
Hmm.
when we are able to look back, if we're lucky enough to do so and have the
Hmm.
wherewithal and, the gumption, frankly, because it takes a lot of courage to
Hmm.
take a good hard look at the choices that we've made or
Yeah.
the situations in which we found ourselves. We recognize that even in those difficult times, sometimes those are the most revealing and awesome times. And we want to walk around saying, why did God do this, or why did
Yeah.
Source do this?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, why not? And I have a
Hmm.
teacher that says, why not? Why not me? Why not
Hmm.
you?
Hmm.
That's going to be a book that I'm writing, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when we look at it that way, it's we're all here to have an experience,
Hmm.
and it's divinely guided and guarded,
Hmm.
and we just need to sort of, like you said, have that faith that there's
Hmm.
a bigger plan at work. And if we try to stop bulldozing our way through our lives and controlling everything, we
Yep.
leave a lot of room for big amounts of magic.
Absolutely. I could
Yeah.
not agree more. I think about all the things that I thought I wanted in life. I wanted to be with that person, or I wanted that job, or I wanted that, whatever it
Hmm.
was. And if all of my wants were granted, I'd be in a lot of trouble, because oftentimes I wasn't listening to spirit or that inner voice saying, that's not good for you. You shouldn't do that. I was married in my early 20s, and a thought flashed across my mind the day before I got married. Why are you doing this? Why are
Mm,
you doing this? And my reason was, well, I want to feel loved. And so that's why I'm marrying this person.
mm,
And the marriage did not last long, because we did not get married on the basis of compatibility and co creation.
hmm.
We got married because it was convenient, and because I thought, if he loved me, I'll be okay. But,
Right.
you're right that God doesn't necessarily visit tragedy on us, because, like you said, sometimes we bulldoze our way. I think of a bull in a china shop myself. We
Yeah.
bulldoze our way with our will, like, I want this, and I'm
Yeah.
going to ignore that thing inside of me that's like, nah, nah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and also, at moments where we have clear clarity,
Mhm.
and then we say that can't possibly be as easy as that was, and we talk ourselves
Mhm.
out of it, also with
Mhm.
our free will, right? So
Yep.
how we use our willpower,
Mhm.
that's third chakra stuff, matters. How do we exert power? How do we receive it? And how do we
Mhm.
express it? And the key is to even know that we're allowed to have it.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And that's it too, is we do have power. We absolutely have power. We're not just going about aimlessly like robots or
mm-mm,
puppets on a string, but it's a matter of getting in touch with the power. And this is where alignment comes in. I've been thinking a lot about alignment. And for me, when something doesn't feel right, my inner sage or my inner source or my divine self is saying, that's not in your highest good. That thing that you think you want, or that thing you think is the right thing to do, is not in your highest good. And I only have your highest good. And that's what
Right.
Reiki's about, right? It's all about highest good. And Reiki can do no harm. And when I'm feeling off about something, sometimes I ignore it. And when I don't ignore it, when I just stay true to myself, that's when I know I'm in alignment. When
Hmm.
things feel right and things feel good. If things feel a little off, like they do for me right now in a particular situation, I
Hmm.
know to walk away.
Right. And the courage that it takes to do that, in terms of like the emotional intelligence in the area that you're into, if we're raised in an environment or with parents that don't even know themselves, I mean, that's a whole other podcast. But if we're raised to disbelieve our innate knowing
Mhm,
because our parents are in fear that
mhm.
we maybe call them out on their bullshit or we got their number, let's say, then we initially walk around thinking that what we think isn't true.
Mhm,
And then it takes our adult lives to unravel that.
mhm.
I always knew this, or I always had faith in myself, but
Yeah.
society tells us otherwise. And so
Mhm,
again, the power comes in of aligning with just what you're saying, like when we really know,
mhm.
we just need to have the faith that we do. And
Right.
people are going to say, who do you think you are? Or how do you really know? And I want it to be enough to say, I just know
Mhm,
and not have to defend it, just live it.
mhm. Yeah, live
Yeah.
it. And a lot of people talk about gut instinct.
Hmm.
If you want to call it gut instinct, call it gut instinct. Trust your gut. I
Yeah.
hear that a lot. And, when someone says, I don't know what to do, it's like, well, how are you feeling inside? Right?
Hmm.
How are you feeling? Because emotions can get a bad rap in our society.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And especially for women, we tend to be more open with our emotions, but we also tend to be criticized for being open with our
Hmm.
emotions. And emotions are information. They're
Yep.
information. So it's either information about something in my environment that I'm reacting to,
Hmm.
or whatever it is, right? Happiness, joy, sadness, fear, anger, resentment, whatever it is. And then I have to say, why am I feeling this particular emotion in this particular situation?
Hmm.
So if I'm angry with somebody, they may not be doing anything. It's me, and how am I reacting to it, and is it pressing a button that I need to look at? And whether they did something wrong or right, I still have to look at me.
Right. Right. And that's some of the most difficult work for people
Hmm.
because they want to be like, oh, this can't be me. That's got to be something else or society or it's your fault or whatever. And when
Hmm.
we really take ownership of our own stuff and how we're triggered, recognizing that we are triggered, and then actually coming from gratitude for the trigger. Because
Yes.
if we never have those moments, then we don't grow.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you might be really angry at the person triggering you, but if you can step outside of that and say, thank you for showing me that mirror or showing me that button, um, that's a tremendous gift.
And
So,
it is a gift. And there are two things I would like to say about that. One is the Buddhist philosophy is everyone's a teacher. And
mm-hmm,
even the people we don't like or the situation we don't like, that's a teacher. And that's the introspection. It's inviting us to look inside and say, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of somebody not liking me? Am I afraid to speak my truth? Am I repressing some kind of anger? And the other thing is, a friend of mine, whenever something was wrong and I'd be complaining, she'd say, Jamie, look for the gift. And I'd
mm.
be like, there's no gift in this thing. There's no gift in this thing. Where's the gift? But eventually, every single time, 100%, there was a gift. And I'm
Right.
much better. And in fact, one of the key tenets of positive intelligence is that when something goes wrong, we don't want to go down the path of the judge and the nine accomplices, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the hyper controller, whatever, because those guys are the ventriloquists. That's the ego talking and
Right.
trying to sort of derail us. But the sage power says, if you've made a mistake or you've done something, take a look at what the gifts are. And there's a game called Three Gifts, and you find three gifts in it. And if
Mm.
you can do that and you're willing to try, it may not be instantaneous, but that's where the learning comes.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
There's a lot of learning sometimes. It depends. And we all need a friend who's going to say, where's the gift? But even in the moment, you're like, there's no gift. But, we all need a friend like that.
Yeah. Yes, we
And it doesn't
do.
mean, like, I want to be careful too. Like, I know it's not because that person's trying to make you a pansy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there's a lot of people that are so uncomfortable with your discomfort, they just want you to stop being uncomfortable so they can go about their lives. But the people who are
Yes.
true friends, like the one you're describing, that says,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're in pain, and do
Mm-hmm.
you have a frame of reference where maybe not in this exact moment, but I encourage you to find the gift, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't minimize your having an emotion. That's the thing you're saying. Like society says emotions are bad, or women have too many of them, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have to wear that opinion, you know?
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
one of the things that drives me really crazy is when you're telling somebody that you're having a day or you're sad or you're feeling embarrassed, or, we all experience shame to one degree
Mm-hmm.
or another. And shame is that internalized guilt. That's the I hate myself, I'm dumb, I did something really stupid, I'm a bad person. But somebody will say, don't feel ashamed or don't feel sad, or and then that's negating my emotion and
Right.
negating my experience and not just honoring it. And like you say, you don't have to be ashamed with me, you don't have to be angry with me, but you can be with me in my vulnerability, and that
Exactly.
demonstrates your vulnerability.
Right. Right. And I know we connect on, growing up when we grew up, and I think I shared with you one of my siblings worked for somebody who's pretty famous, and I believe the statement "don't should on yourself"
Mm-hmm.
came from that person. And I say that in
Oh.
my classes a lot too. Like, don't should
Mm-hmm.
on yourself. Like, should is I think it's a four-letter word. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we really remove that, and really just be in the moment of
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're experiencing, and try not to wish it away, push it away, like we've talked about, sit with that discomfort,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then we can transform. Then we can move on
Mm-hmm.
and recognize it might be a gift, or it wasn't mine to carry anyway, or I was just having a bad day. Like,
Yeah.
not everything is a lesson either. Sometimes you just
Mm-hmm.
stub your toe. That's not God saying, oh, I made you stub your toe.
Yeah, I
But
know.
if you're late for the meeting because you stubbed your toe and then you avoided this huge other thing, then that's
Mm-hmm.
what you can look at and say, oh, I guess that was, divine source stepping in and making me
Mm-hmm.
stub my toe,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think about that when there's traffic and it makes me late
yeah.
or something like that. And I think, okay, Jamie, or I get behind a slow car, I'm not a slow driver.
Mm-mm.
I think, okay, this is a time for me to just slow down. I'm going to be fine. I will get there. I can always
Yeah.
make a phone call if it's somebody's waiting on me. But this must be for me to take some breath and drive and not worry about whether I'm going 10 miles slower,
Mm-hmm.
because I will get where I'm going and I am not the fire chief. And
Right.
so I'm not the one racing to a fire. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend who wants to tell a story, and in terms of using traffic as an example and how it can become a lesson, just like we're describing, it might prevent us from encountering something we don't even know yet. But
Mm-hmm.
she uses it as an opportunity to practice compassion
Mm.
or empathy, because she imagines the person in front of us who's making us just absolutely nuts, right?
Yeah.
Um, she imagines, what if it were like my mother's going to be 92?
Oh,
what if
yeah.
it what if my mother still drove and it was my mother in front of me, or this
Mm-hmm.
older person, or someone's having a bad day?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we just kind of step back and say, put yourself in that driver's seat, literally,
Mm-hmm.
and practice the compassion that whatever they're going through is making them drive this slowly. even though
Yeah.
it's making us crazy. And so it really is a good opportunity to sort of practice that blanket of empathy and blanket of compassion for someone else's whatever.
Absolutely. And that's another
Yeah,
sage power is
yeah.
empathy. And empathy it's really entering into whatever's going on in that person. And one thing about empathy, and maybe people know this and maybe they don't, but empathy doesn't mean I have to have the exact same experience that
Right.
you had. But if you tell me you're going through something really difficult or you lost your job, maybe I didn't lose my job, but I have felt the way you
Hmm.
feel, and
Hmm.
that's where the empathy comes in.
Right.
And maybe the person in front of you got a speeding ticket and is saying, you know what, I am going the speed limit and I
Right.
don't care what you
Yeah.
have to do, but I am
Those
not
are the
getting
days you
another.
drive the speed limit for sure. Yeah.
Nobody in Connecticut drives the speed limit, I can tell you that. They either
Yeah.
drive really low below it or they drive really fast above it.
Right.
Like I
Right.
live right by the parkway, so I take the
Mm.
parkway all the time. And the parkway speed limit is 55 and people regularly go 80.
Well, that's a good starting point, right?
Yeah. And so the people going 55, it's like, are you riding a bike?
Right.
It's like
Right.
so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
My,
so that's me, I'm in the fast lane, and then if I have to get off on an exit, I have to slow down. I have to go 45 or 50 or whatever. And that's me going, it's okay. You can
right.
slow down. And
Right.
actually sometimes I think that's where the alignment comes in, right? Because
Hmm.
mindfulness is about slowing down.
Right. And alignment, like you said, going with the flow,
Mm-hmm.
even if we don't like the speed at which traffic is flowing,
Mm-hmm.
letting go of the oars and just driving with traffic
Mm-hmm.
um, means we're right in flow. We're not in
Mm-hmm.
charge. We're not trying to change it. We're just trying to assimilate and get along with it. And
Yeah,
there's a gift in that too, a tremendous gift.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's probably lowers your blood pressure.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah.
screaming at the driver in front of you, by the way.
Yeah. And ease and flow. And again, positive intelligence teaches us that, ride the wave.
Yeah.
You're on the wave, and if you don't ride it, you're going to go under, and that's not a good place to be. But if you let the wave carry you,
Mm-hmm.
and you know how to ride the wave and steer the surfboard, we're using a ton of metaphors here, you're going to get where you need to go,
Right.
and you're going to be safe. And we can do PQ reps in the car. Sometimes when I'm feeling anxious, I touch my steering wheel and I
Mm.
just focus on how the steering wheel feels in my hand, or I
Mm.
look at the road, or I notice the bumps or something, as long as I'm still keeping my eyes on the road. But the idea is stay in the moment. Don't stay in the I have to get where I'm going, or that person made me late, or this person is a crazy driver, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or whatever it is. Like you say, we don't have to match the mood,
Mm-hmm.
because we can stay like this, right? We can stay on an even keel if we choose to.
Right. And just the mindfulness is what you're describing is what how I'm taking it, and faith comes from being in alignment with those moments of just being, and
Hmm.
mindfulness does that, right? So just the way you're describing, eyes on the road, noticing the bumps, just going with the flow, that's when we're in flow, that's when we're aligned.
Yep. And
So
it's noticing, you're right.
yeah, just the
And
noticing.
I start my day every day with meditation, and it may be out the window in an hour, but I can always come back to it. But if I start my day with just silence
Hmm.
and being in my body and my breath, then, and yoga's that way, right? You're
Hmm.
in your
Yeah.
body. And I was actually doing some kind of yoga weight training thing this morning as well.
Oh.
And the whole point was keep your balance, make sure your core is tight, and breathe with the movement.
Hmm.
And when you
Right.
when you know you have to breathe with the movement, you have to think about your breath.
Yeah. Yeah. And it removes the thought. That's the whole point, is the moments that we can just really just be open, which
Mhm.
means to me, like, have no thoughts, just be a vessel
Mhm.
for the experience.
Mhm.
That's alignment.
Yeah.
That's when faith comes in. That's when
Yeah.
fear, we can recognize what really is happening in fear,
Mhm.
be able to identify it, avoid the rabbit hole of it and the story of it, because we're not our emotions, even though
Right.
sometimes we walk around just not understanding that we're not our emotions for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we can recognize that's just an emotion, it's nothing more than or less than the weather, right? Just a cloud floating by.
Mhm.
I'm not the cloud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I've
So,
done mindfulness with people where, in terms of guided, it's sort of like look at a stream and maybe look at the leaves going by
hmm
and just notice that and notice the movement, but separate yourself from it because when you're in it, you're not present,
right,
right? When you're in the
right.
movie. And that made me think of something I listened to Abraham Hicks slash Esther Hicks, and she talks about segment intending, and that's all about being in the moment. So
Mm.
instead of, I had to go to the eye doctor this morning and I had to do a couple of errands, and all I kept thinking of, I had to be on time because we're going live.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking about what time is it? And then I said, wait a minute, segment intending. I'm just in the car driving to the eye doctor. And that's all I'm doing right now. And as
Mm.
soon as I did that, I was fine.
Right.
I was fine. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to the eye doctor. I want to get there safely.
hmm
I want to go the
Yeah.
speed limit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough for sure to stay in that space, especially when life is happening all around us.
Hmm.
And we are prone to, I feel, get caught up in the nets of other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And we want to be good friends. We want to be good spouses, whatever, teachers, students. And it's one thing to respect from where someone else is coming. It's
Hmm.
quite another thing to then lose yourself and morphing into that to please someone else. So standing our ground and having the power to do that
Hmm.
makes us the best people for being good teachers, being good students, being good humans.
Yes, yes. And what you said about being true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we're in fear, again, yes, fear happens. It's normal. And it isn't to say, don't be afraid. There are times when fear is real. Sometimes there's a real tiger, sometimes it's a paper tiger, and we need to be able to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But if we've lived in fear most of our lives, or for a great portion of our lives, say, we lived in an abusive environment, or we
Mm-hmm.
lived in an environment, or we've had traumatic experiences that caused us to have to be vigilant and have
Mm-hmm.
to always be on the alert for something that's going to come at us that hurts. And if we're powerless, especially if we're children, we don't have necessarily a means of escape. But when we're adults and we may not be in that situation, but we haven't processed the trauma, then the fear is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I recommend therapy. I recommend finding a good trauma therapist if that's the case, because if it's not processed, it lives in your body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then everything you react to, right? I think I said this before. I was walking on a minefield and mines were going off. And at first, I didn't know I was on a minefield. And then when I did realize I was on one, I still had to process the field and recognize the triggers and recognize when stuff was no longer something I had to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It takes time. It takes work, like you said. Good therapy. There's so many ways to address fear in a body and release and remove it. Therapy is one way, yoga is
Mm-hmm.
another. There's
Mm-hmm.
somatic breathing exercise. There's so
Mm-hmm.
many wonderful, amazing healers that can help people in fear. And I'm
Yeah.
just grateful to be in a community of people that have all their magic that can help. I like to throw a lot of noodles on the wall when I teach. One cue doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work for somebody, so I'll throw
Mm-hmm.
another one out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's how we sort of really do help the world is you do what you do, I do what I do, people do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't mean that my way is the best way or anybody else's. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lucky when I get to resonate with people in my way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And you're right. We don't all process things exactly the same way, and people may find something that works for them that isn't the
Mm-hmm.
same as what works for you. But the point is to get in touch with what is going on and have faith that whatever it is, you know, deal with it, acknowledge it, don't push it away, don't pretend it's not there, but
Mm-hmm.
then look for the source of it. And if there is fear, just remember that maybe it's a lesson that you need to learn. And I, for one, call it AFGO, another effing growth opportunity. And
Mm.
anyone here watching or listening, you can borrow that. When
I love
something's
it.
happening to you
Yeah.
and it's not good and you're frustrated or whatever,
Yeah.
call it an AFGO and move
Hmm.
on.
I like that. I like that. I might be stealing that from you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Well,
because
what's the
it's,
acronym for fear, right? It's face everything and run,
uh
or
huh.
face everything and rise. There's so many of them. But
Yeah, or
again, it's
false
about the power of,
evidence.
right, it's the power of
Yeah,
choice. How do you
yeah.
look at the fear?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. False
Um,
evidence appearing real, or yeah. Um,
mhm.
there's a positive one, but I don't know what it is. But you were saying face everything,
And rise.
and oh, and rise. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That makes me think of Maya Angelou. Together we rise, or today I rise.
Oh,
She had a very, very hard childhood. She was
hmm,
a victim of sexual abuse and physical abuse, and she lived in poverty, and she didn't let that define her.
right.
That was not what defined her. What defined her was how she decided to define herself as a poet, as a writer, as a public speaker. And that reminds me, I
I have to let
edited.
my dog in.
Oh,
She's
okay. Go ahead. That's all right. Yeah.
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 She
So,
she gets stuck in here. There you go.
oh, hi,
Okay.
pup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, yeah. Stay in the moment. The dog
That's right.
stays in the moment. Talk about
People are going to hear
animals.
like, "What's the scratching? What does she have
Yeah.
back there?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She goes around and she's like, "Oh, how do I get out?" So, what were
Yeah.
you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that I edited a collection. I curated a collection, a book called Religion and Black Feminist Public Intellectuals.
Oh.
Um, all of a sudden, I'm forgetting the name of my own book. Oh, Activism in the Name of God:
Mm.
Religion and Black Feminist Public Intellectuals from the 19th Century to the Present. And with 11 other authors and I, what we did was we each are experts on particular Black women in history, and we wrote a chapter and put the book together. And it's all about 12 Black women who defied social structures and racist structures and misogynistic structures and did what was true for them.
Mm.
And the first person in the book that we deal with is Jarena Lee. She was a preacher and a mystic. She was the first Black female preacher in the African Methodist Episcopal Church in the early 1800s. And she wrote a spiritual autobiography, which
Mm.
was fairly feminist leaning, even though feminism wasn't a thing, all the way up to Patrice Cullors and her work with prison industrial complex and Black Lives Matter. But all of these women experienced great pushback and a lot of racism, sexism, whatever it was, but they didn't care. They just said, that's too bad. I'm doing it anyway. I know who I am and I know
Hmm.
what I need to do.
Yeah, they were in alignment with their
Mm-hmm.
authentic selves,
Mm-hmm.
not letting fear dictate their actions,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you transform yourself and the people around you.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And the world. I mean,
and the
not that
world.
we can't change the world,
Right.
but
Well, one person at a time. It starts with this one.
exactly, exactly. I was
Yeah.
just going to say, we can do our part and hopefully it has a ripple effect.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just like this.
yeah. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so I want to thank all of the people who are watching this and all of the people who are listening to it on any of the podcast audio platforms. And Laurie, I want to thank you. And Laurie's information will be in the show notes. And before we quit, A, I want to see you all at the PQ gym. And B, I'm going to play something for you. I got